Welcome, everyone. It is 1 o'clock on Monday, January the 26th, and welcome to our meeting today. I'm going to begin by inviting everyone to rise for O Canada. I'm going to call on Councillor Forder for our land acknowledgement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We would like to begin by acknowledging that we are meeting on the traditional lands and treaty territory of the Saugeen and Ojibwe Nation, which includes the Chippewas of Nawash Unceded First Nation and the Chippewas of Saugeen First Nation. We also recognize the Métis, whose ancestors shared this land and these waters. We extend our gratitude to all Anishinaabe and Métis people and their descendants, past, present, and future, who continue to care for and inhabit these lands and tend these waters.
Thank you, Councillor, and I'll just invite you to join me in a moment of silent reflection on our business today. Thank you. Now I'll just look around the horseshoe and invite any declaration of pecuniary interest, if there is any. Seeing none, just a reminder, you can bring it forward should it occur to you. And we'll move right on into announcements. And this past week was ROMA, the Rural Ontario Municipalities Association Conference in Toronto. We had a great representation of Meaford Council there. We had some important delegations. And I think we'll just maybe take a few minutes and go around the horseshoe during announcements here and get a bit of a recap from those who were there about how they saw things. And I'll start with Councillor Uhrig.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And yes, I will say it was a very interesting conference, and I honestly find that conference very educational at all times. It was quite good. So I know that Councillor Greenfield has submitted a summary that's going to be at our next council meetings correspondence, and I've also done a report. So I'm just going to do a high level of a few things that I did attend some of the sessions. So raising corporate sponsorship was one that was quite interesting. In Canada, it's a $4.2 billion industry with about 5.9% or 249 million going to municipalities. Most importantly, 56% of Canadian corporations are engaging in sponsorship that used to be philanthropy. So that money is drying up. So what the recommendations were is that municipalities should be taking a really good look at signing, naming opportunities, and looking at making sure that we have a policy in place that covers that. Strengthening rural vitality through arts and culture. It's another one that I know I champion a lot because they contribute over 26 billion to the provincial GDP. Couple of things that came out of that was there were some recommendations that work with the Tourism Industry Association of Ontario, modernize our data collection methods for more accurate and actionable insights and trends, explore emerging markets, and incorporate culture sector activities, products, and events. The biggest message they talked about was de-siloing to make sure to place all related activities under economic development, because it is a real contributor, and Meaford is an illustration of that with the amount that we do to that regard. Another session, getting accurate information to residents. I thought it was a shame Holly wasn't there for that one. I know Margaret was, and I think we agreed that it was a very interesting session. Almost 2.5 million people live in a postal code with either 1 or 0 local news outlets. And while we're lucky enough to have a newspaper, radio station, there are still gaps. It was really clever. Clarington and Port Hope gave great examples of ways that they use inject a little humor, a little levity into their social posts to try and get more engagement. Clarington actually had a 3,600 people uptake once they started using that kind of approach. And Port Hope, they did a massive 2-year street renovation that was going to be very disruptive, and they built a whole campaign around it that made sure that businesses and people were aware. And they actually, again, made it, introduced a little levity to it, and it actually helped tamper a lot of the anger that normally comes with that kind of project. Finally, I went as well to the Jobs, Families, and Care Closer to Home. It was the rural long-term care session. And that one is obviously very concerning because the average wait for these facilities in 23-24 was about 121 days, and the average length of stay being 18 months. The wait list in 2011 was 19,000. In 2025, it's 50,000. And they estimate that unless Ontario can build a lot of the long-term care homes they expect, it's going to exceed 98,000 in the not too distant future. So again, it's just a lot of alarm bells ringing off about our baby boomer aging demographics and how we're going to have to care for that sector in the future. So
Thank
those
you.
are just some of the things that I attended.
Councillor Greenfield.
Thank you, your worship, and thanks, Councillor Urick. Yeah, it was a very busy conference, and I know our deputy mayor and our CAO and our director of legislative services were extremely busy with a great many delegations. I was privileged to sit in on 3 of them, and very interesting. We heard from celebrities such as Premier Ford, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing Black, Marat Stiles, the leader of the NDP, and our semi-local minister, Lisa Thompson, the Minister of Agriculture, and an interesting speech from Chantal Hébert, columnist, journalist. Let's see. The seminars I sat in on: shifting citizenry / shifting services, rural vitality through arts and culture, addressing seniors' care, strategies to manage rural lands, IESO, energy and economic policy, municipal financial sustainability, workforce in small, urban, rural, and northern Ontario. All very interesting. Obviously, not only from the seminars, but from networking with other municipal politicians who were there. Everybody is concerned about the huge increases in demands for housing, infrastructure, transit, healthcare, policing, and planning services. It's very serious across certainly across rural Ontario, and I think all of Ontario. Health and seniors care service in great demand, and more training opportunities are in great demand. We just don't have enough young people to look after the more mature. The financial sustainability delivery was especially interesting. Oh, they all were, but well, a couple of statements from it I want to throw out. One is council and staff must share mutual trust, and the public must have trust in their local government. Thought that a pretty meaningful statement. Another statement was that a recent province-wide survey indicate 76% of citizens consider property taxes too high. That may not be a surprise to anybody. And one other thing from that seminar, ensure that your citizens are made very aware of your asset management plans and the current position of your assets. And I think that's very important, certainly from the councilor's side of the table. It's very important because there are many demands that go along with your asset management plan, especially the plan for the future. Ontario municipalities own over $484 billion worth of infrastructure. However, for it to be up to date, the amount should be doubled. Very sobering. There was one item I wrote down that the farms in Ontario are definitely getting bigger in acreage, but the growth of small farms, and that's farms under 50 acres, is growing more rapidly than the growth in large farms. So that's kind of interesting. That may not be the case in our municipality, but across the province, that was an interesting statement. We heard about fire protection in rural areas, and that was interesting. Getting an aggregate approval for a pit or a quarry, minimum of 6 years. Usually it's closer to twice that long to get your license. And I think something like 14 permits are required. That's just like I'll wrap up, your worship. Sorry to take so long, but provincial politicians that any I heard did not mention serious changes to the Conservation Act or local conservation authorities. That seems to be not discussed a lot. Electricity demands by 2050 to increase 65% now, and there's also quite a bit of talk about development in Northern Ontario. Roads, railways, mining is starting a rebirth in Northern Ontario, and finally, I just have all politicians I conversed with are facing the same difficulties as our own municipality of Meaford: increasing demands for public services and an insufficient funding base. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'll try to be relatively brief in my comments. There were 2,400 delegates at Roma this year, which is more than have ever been present. I believe this is my 11th year attending Roma, and there were also 651 delegations to ministries this year, which is more than by quite a bit than they've ever had before. So it was quite the scheduling get all of these delegations completed. And just on that note, as has been mentioned, we did have 3 to the ministers of energy, health, and transportation, and I'm sure our CAO will speak to the content of those. And I also attended delegations on behalf of Grey County, so that took a considerable amount of my time. But I'll just speak briefly to a couple of the sessions that I found particularly interesting. And Councillor Greenfield mentioned the shifting citizenry, which really encouraged us to think about how our population and our demographic is changing in our own community. And I think we see that because Meaford has always been known as a retirement community. People would sell their farms and move into town type of thing. And now we're seeing a lot of young families choosing Meaford, which is wonderful. There are many more children, as we see by the by all of the outside of our school and all the extra classrooms that have been required there. So it encourages us to think about how we need to change our thinking as we look at the demands for services and the different and increasing expectations from our residents. So it's just important for us to assess and understand these shifts in population and to equate that into discussions around affordability and different demands for infrastructure and the homelessness that we face in all of our communities and strains on our natural resources. A second session that I really enjoyed was about polarity thinking. And this also encouraged us to look at our decision making in just a slightly different way. And the speaker was a former mayor from Vancouver, and she spoke to polarity as being 2 seemingly opposing values that both contain wisdom. So even though we may be having a discussion and we may be on completely different sides of an issue, there is wisdom, as she suggests, to be gained from both presentations. So she really encouraged us to take that thinking and to look at the upsides of both of those sides of arguments and to try to reach a best outcome through that process. So I think it's important for us to take that right back to the basics of looking at the relationship between services and taxes. I mean, that's always our struggle. So, we listen to, to the challenges as Councillor Greenfield talked about taxes. We know that is a challenge, but yet, we understand the services that are required and the services that people want and need. So finding that balance through this type of thinking is just a slightly different way to approach things. So on that note, Mr. Mayor, I'll pass it along to, I guess, Councillor Porter will be next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. This was my 4th Roma. I never miss it. Unfortunately, I had to miss some of this programming because I did have a death in the family, so I was kind of coming and going a little bit. So, but due to my wife's orders, I did come back and finished the rest of the weekend. Of course, I'll always attend anything that has to do with energy production. So the IESO luncheon was very informative, particularly with the energy minister talking about how the province is going to be able to meet the increasing energy demands of the province, and that is very interesting. However, the one thing I wanted to comment on, because a lot of the sessions that I did attend had already been covered, but the strategies to manage rural lands I found particularly fascinating, and it wasn't what I was expecting it to be, which was a pleasant surprise. So there was 2 components to this that I found very engaging. One of them was about wildfire readiness, and this was from the Sioux Lookouts Fire Chief, Jeremy Funk. And I found him to be extremely educational. And he referred to a program called Fire Smart. And this was pretty fascinating. And so Fire Smart it's a national program that helps Canadians increase neighborhood resilience to wildfires and minimize the negative impacts. And it was very shocking to see the impacts that wildfires have in rural communities when they don't have that wildfire readiness. And I was sitting with Councillor Greenfield as well, and he did caution, the fire chief did caution that some of the images might be a little triggering because it shows how catastrophic wildfires in rural communities can be. But he was using some very great examples of a forest fire that he went out to visit in Alberta. and just the utter devastation everywhere you look, everything was just burnt down. And the communities that were fire smart, prepared were completely undamaged. And it was all about getting rid of brush and making sure that your, trees are pruned properly and everything is a safe distance from the house. And it really helped put things in perspective to think that there are many little things that you can do around your own home that can prepare you for something like this, and particularly in Meaford, where we're just surrounded with nature, which is a huge benefit, but it also is it's a huge variable that we need to take into consideration, particularly with a changing climate, and the threat of wildfires just seems to be increasing year over year. But I really found this Fire Smart program to be very interesting, because they provide all sorts of resources and support, not just for residences, but for municipalities as well. So that's something that I think that would be worth looking into if we haven't already. Second to that as well was, I can't remember the woman's name who was speaking about it, but it was in regards to the Milton Quarry. And they were talking about the decommission plan, naturalizing, and the future of decommissioned quarries. And so for those that don't know, the Milton Quarry is an old limestone quarry, and it's being cited as how industrial aggregate sites can be used responsibly as they're decommissioned, and they can be transformed into really valuable ecological landscapes. And in some cases, these quarries, particularly the Milton Quarry, they can support greater biodiversity than the surrounding natural lands themselves. And so the Milton Quarry is being rehabilitated through a phased closure plan, and the focus is naturalization. So the landscape is to be reshaped, and it's allowed to be partially flooded to create lakes and wetlands and specialized habitats planted with native vegetation. There's a big emphasis on at-risk species, particularly turtles. And so with this examples used from this project, it demonstrates how the end of life industrial land in rural settings can become a net environmental gain when the restoration is planned from the outset. And so I just found that to be really impressive. And I do come from the Milton area originally, so I'm quite familiar with that, but I was not familiar with the decommission plan and the naturalizing, and I just found that to be extremely impressive. So without getting too much into the weeds, Mr. Mayor, those would be some of my highlights from the Roma show. Thank you.
Go ahead, Eric.
Thank you very much. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I attended all the sessions that I attended. I think were relatively well covered. I think the only one that I didn't hear anybody else talk about was the one on specifically financial planning for municipalities. And for me, getting into this process, especially with the week coming up, it really helped me alongside the training that we've already received, kind of continue to wrap my head around the idea of as a municipality, if you're going to make an investment in a piece of capital infrastructure, you need to not only think, okay, how do we pay for this? How do we get it built? And then we'll worry about it again in 20 years. But in 20 years, in 50 years, 100 years, when more work needs to be done, how do we make sure that we've made this investment now and we continue to make investments so that we can afford to do whatever will need to be done to that piece of infrastructure in the future? And that was just a really key takeaway for me, because that is an area that's relatively new. But otherwise, just being around the conference, it was both, to me, both comforting and concerning, hearing that a lot of the issues that we're constantly talking about or dealing with, whether it be things that are legislative, and so obviously everybody's dealing with it, but just socially and economically, that a lot of other municipalities are essentially dealing with the same thing. So it's comforting knowing it's not just us. But it's also concerning knowing that this problem, it's more of a systemic problem. But that said, there's some very inspirational stories of municipalities who, kind of took a risk, did something a little bit creative that was unique to their municipality. They had a really good line of sight on how things work in their community and found a way to solve problems in a creative way. And so there's a bunch of examples of that kind of thing. But there also was a lot of voiced frustration about the way that the province is acting towards municipalities. And we see, especially with the conservation issue, but a couple of other things, it seems to be the trend now to find something that municipalities have been using successfully for a period of time or a process or a bit of legislation and things are going okay. Somebody finding a very tiny issue and then the response from the province to solve that tiny issue is a complete reworking of the system. And then just doing that without asking anybody about it. And then essentially after the whole process is completed, then ask, okay, well, you're going to need to figure out how to implement this because this is happening. And we see that very clearly with the Conservation Authority situation. So hopefully that kind of thing, you know, I hope they were heard based on the speeches that we listened to from politicians in the current government. I'm not feeling massively confident that they heard us, but maybe it'll just take them a few days. But that's me. Trying to be positive.
You want to interject, and I don't have no idea what your interest is.
No, because, thank you, Mr. Mayor, because two councillors did reference Ray Sobel, and I will mention that I was invited to a deputation with Aaron Elderly to discuss Ray Sobel or the Conservation Authority issue. It was with the Ministry of Natural Resources, which it's not MECP, which it's actually under, but it was a very good conversation because I did get a chance to illustrate the concerns that rural Ontario has with this concept. They did seem to agree with some of the concerns as well, and we have no idea where it's going to go, but they do work in tandem with MECP, and that message was going to be carried back. And in a few days, maybe they will do something about it. Deputy Mayor just said, and I will quote the Prime Minister, or the Premier, who, when he said, when the camel's head's in the tent, it's all in the tent. We have no idea what that means, but
I think I
it's
know.
coming from him, so it must mean something.
Look for the hump to follow. CAO Everett, you were there, you were involved in some of the deputations, and would you like to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, Roma is that conference is always one of my favorite. With it being the rural Ontario municipalities, it really is the most relevant that we have for conferences. I felt the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Transportation and Ontario Transportation, as well as Ministry of Economic or Energy and Mines. All three of those delegations were extremely well received. I can tell you that this is the first time in a number of years that within 2 days from the conference, I received feedback from two of those ministries that were as a direct result to those delegations. So Ministry of Transportation reached back out and we had a good discussion about funding for our connecting link. So that was a good follow-up. And then we also had some really good feedback from Ministry of Energy and Mines. So the South Georgian Bay Mayors and CAOs Forum also had two delegations. We met with Ministry of Economic Development as well as Ministry of the Reduction of Red Tape. So those were also well received. We did make the offer to both of those ministries to come to our area for a couple of days and spend some time with staff, so we can actually show them firsthand what some of our challenges and issues are. And I honestly believe that we will be seeing both of those ministries come up and we can probably host them for a couple of days. So other than that, the sessions were really good. The two that I just wanted to make note of that, you know, sort of came out of not the blue, but they're not getting a lot of press. One is the standardization of the code of conduct. That is something that we are paying very, very close attention to, where the province is looking at standardizing all the codes of conducts for council, which, you know, has its pros and has its cons, but we're being very mindful of that. And then the other one is just the proposed changes to the OMERS governance structure. That's something that, quite frankly, does not get any press, but it has significant consequences potentially where the OMERS, which is the municipality's retirement pension, right now it has stakeholders. The provincial government doesn't have a lot to do with that fund. What the province is proposing is they become sort of the keeper of the governance piece. So that is something that, you know, we're being very mindful of right now. The taxpayer, the provincial taxpayer does not have any, you know, input into the governance. And there was a lot of confusion as to why the provincial government would want to get into that realm. So those were two pieces that I just wanted to identify. The other piece is just really want to thank council and the staff that that attended. It was, you know, a really good conference. I've never been part of a group that sort of divide and conquer, where we made sure that we had good coverage of the conference. And it was just a real pleasure to be down at a conference with the group and it being really well worth that time. So they did make some subtle changes this year at Roma. Usually the Sundays are more of the registration piece. So I think for the taxpayer, seeing that when we're down there, Sunday was a busy day. Tuesday was Monday was a really busy day, and Tuesday went to lunch. They usually typically would all have always had the Wednesday till lunch. So I actually think it was far more effective and efficient conference. And I've provided the comments to the conference organizers that shift was a really, I think, a well-received shift, and it just made being able to go down there and spending the 2.5 days anyways down there really well worth it. So thank you for that.
Thank you, CAO. Before we move on to public participation, I just wondered, does anybody else have an announcement at all? Anything that you needed to bring up today, Deputy Mayor?
Just quickly, Mr. Mayor, I was just going to add that all members of council also attended a reception with Minister Stephen Lecce, which was a really excellent opportunity to have a few minutes with the minister. And the one thing that we talked about was the connection, the relationship between the expansion at Bruce Power and the proposed OPS, Ontario Pump Storage Project here in Meaford. So that was really an enlightening conversation. And I just wanted to ask people to save this date. And this is an announcement on behalf of the Rotary Club. The coldest night of the year is coming up, and we've already had a lot of cold nights. So if we can handle one more cold night, and that will be in February. And it's February the 28th, a Saturday night, and it will be a walk starting from Rotary House. And this is a partnership between Rotary House and the United Way. And it's a walk and then a light meal and refreshments afterwards served inside the thrift shop. So I'll remind everybody again, but just save that date, February 28th.
Okay, thank you. So moving on to public participation, members of the public are always encouraged to provide council with their comments and questions. Presentations must be prearranged with legislative services before the agenda is released, and they're limited to 10 minutes. If a member of the public wishes to make a deputation on items on the council agenda or to ask a public question of council, they may do so either in person here at the council chambers or remotely via Zoom, either on the phone or internet. Members of the public wishing to make a deputation or to ask a public question must register in advance with Legislative Services by 10 in the morning on the day of the meeting. You can do that by contacting Deputy Clerk at meaford.ca or calling 519-538-1060, extension 1110. An email with access information will be sent to those who register for remote participation. Deputations are limited to 5 minutes and public questions to 2 minutes. And a reminder, the public can watch this meeting live on the municipality's YouTube channel, www.meaford.ca/YouTube. And we do have a couple of presentations today. And first, I'm going to call on Simona Frabrigova of the Meaford Community Garden. Can we turn their microphone on there? Oh, perfect.
Dear Mayor, members of council, staff, and our citizens. My name is Simona Freiberkova, and this is Mark Plummer. We are here today to represent Meaford Community Garden. As many of you know, the Meaford Community Garden has been located on the former GBCS property since 2012. In addition, since 2015, we have also gardened at the Victoria Village, where we are hosting gardening communities, gardening activities for children. The Meaford Community Garden provides significant benefits to our community. We grow sustainably produced fresh vegetables, which are donated to the Meaford Food Bank, the Meaford Community Fridge, and Meaford Place, and also local meal programs. Our program also includes gleaning apples and pears, further supporting food access. The Meaford Community Garden operates under the umbrella of the United Way of Grey Bruce, which provide charitable oversight and insurance coverage. Our measurable impact includes approximately 2,000 pounds of fresh produce donated annually, more than 50 volunteers engaged each growing season, and up to 10 free educational gardening workshops offered each year. Much of this impact is summarized in the recent article in the Meaford Independent, which clearly outlines why we are here today. On page 6, if you read the article of Meaford Independent, you probably are familiar with the ask today. We are here to ask for council's help in finding new home for the Meaford Community Garden, as we are now required to leave our current location. Some of you may remember that this is not a new request. I appeared before council on November 29, 2021, shortly after the GBCS property was sold, to ask for assistance in identifying a new location. At that time, a motion was passed to help find an alternative site, and we were permitted to remain at the current location temporarily. That time has now come to an end. In order to resume our activities and continue serving our community, we are seeking municipally owned public land with access to water, adequate sun exposure. Based on the previous discussions with Deputy Mayor Kivani, we understand that there is a motion before council today to consider this request. We would like to be specific about our potential sites. Do you want to take it?
Yeah. Thank you for your support, by the way, of the community garden as a council in the bursary program. And also just want to say thank you to some of the members of the community garden who are here to support us, and also our donors. So we appreciate that. So we have specific locations that we are thinking about, because we've gone through this before and we've learned a lot, I think on all parties included. We still love to be downtown Meaford. And yes, we did have a discussion with the Agriculture Society, because that would be a great location. I don't believe that they're ready to move forward on that. The other location is to be up near the community school, because we do a lot of teaching of the kids. The whole class comes down and they need to be able to walk from the school. The school itself doesn't have room for community gardens, but somewhere close would be ideal. Those are the two locations that we would suggest considering, but we're looking to work with you and to discuss all the options.
So our task today is very clear. Time is the essence as we prepare for the upcoming season. I've heard the comments from the Roma conference, and let's be creative. Let's find a land that we can offset some of the fresh produce to be donated to our food bank that is actually complaining about the high demands of the food and fresh produce. We ask council today to move forward with identifying a suitable municipal site, and we also request that a staff contact be assigned to work with us on this process. Meaford Community Garden is ready to collaborate and move quickly. With council support, we can continue growing food, supporting food security and strengthening community well-being in Meaford. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much. Any questions from council? Deputy Mayor?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. And I just wanted to start by thanking Simona and Mark and your group for all of the great work that you do in our community. The donations to the food bank is absolutely amazing, and I really appreciate that you support Meaford Place. They need your help. And I just wanted to clarify that I will bring a notice of motion forward later in the meeting to ask staff to consider potential locations. We do have a land inventory that has been recently completed in Meaford, and the motion will ask staff to consider that inventory and to find a space that hopefully meets your needs. And I remember when we went through this before and we looked at a site on William Street, but it wasn't perfect. It didn't have the access to water that you needed. So we, I think, have a good idea now of your requirements, and those will be considered when we look at the land inventory.
Okay, thank you again very much. Our second, yes, our second presentation, I'm going to call on Judy Prima, Meaford Magical Christmas.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Kettner and Deputy Mayor Keaveney and Council. Since we have Christmas fresh in our minds today, I thought it would be good to bring up this idea to Council today. Speaking of people retiring and moving to Meaford, I am one of those people. I moved from Orangeville 5 years ago. And one of the family traditions we had, and all the photos that you see, is what Orangeville calls Christmas in the Park. And Orangeville Christmas in the Park started 30 years ago, and it was a family tradition that we always went to. What started with a few strung lights across that the seniors had put up has now turned into millions of lights, and it attracts 24,000 visitors a year. And it's a free-long event in the month of December. And I thought I'd continue to drive to Orangeville to have this experience. And I thought, wouldn't it be nice if we could bring this family community experience to Meaford? I reached out to my neighbor Donna, who told me what I need to do, and that's why I'm here. So what is required? The first thing is the collaboration between our municipality, established volunteer groups, and how is this achieved? And rather than reinventing the wheel, I reached out to Close, a convenient name for Christmas, from the Orangeville Optimist Club. And what he shared with us is that the first thing is that it requires a chair, a committee of 8 people that covers different roles, entertainment, volunteer, display. In addition, sponsorships. They have 2 types of sponsorships available. They have what they call a sponsor that has no displays. It's listed in the entranceway. They range from $250 to $2,500 or online. And then they have what is called a displayer. And those are people that build their own lights, businesses, and build these displays. And for a profit group, the cost is just slightly under $200. And for a nonprofit group, it's under $100, which I thought was very affordable. This is an example of the sponsor acknowledgement, where when you walk into the park, you see the thankfulness to the town of Orangeville there and all the sponsors. And this is an example of the displayer acknowledgements within the park where people have set up their own displays. So in talking, if we were able to bring this concept to Meaford, Orangeville has 6 hydro stations, but with the LED lights, he felt that one station would be enough to suffice the size of our park. LED lights can run on one circuit. The town pays for the power. Extension cords are provided by the displayers. There's a panel breaker that turns the lights on and off. And the expenses are roughly $400 a tree. And Orangeville Hydro puts up the lights in the large trees in the park. This is what Orangeville Christmas in the Park looks like, and I think it would be beautiful to bring this to Meaford for all our families. Talk about turnout, the parade. The Christmas parade is huge. So in terms of the park maintenance, the paths are not maintained. It's just natural foot trails that are on there. They used to be dirt paths, but they're now paved. The salt is provided by the town. They're approaching the town to help with some snow clearing on heavy snow days. Many hands help. They provide the garbage bins. The Optimist Club provides the bags, and the town picks up the garbage. There's one porta potty on site because you're not there for very long, really, enough to, walk through and enjoy it with your family. And then temporary snow fencing is provided by the town also. Safety, vandalism has really been minimal. They learned to lock the gates and you will eliminate the vandalism. They put up trail cams out throughout the park. And then there's insurance, obviously, that would be a norm under the club and also the municipality. The setup and tear down, they start in October where Hydro comes to do the large trees in the park. Mid-November, the Optimist Club sets up their own displays and they have quite the displays that they set up. And then on the weekends, the displayers are up, they're setting up their own displays. The pathway lighting is done through the Optimist Club, that goes in last. And then January 1st, there's the Optimist Club is right out there removing all the displays. Takes them about 4 days. Last year, the firefighters had helped them. And then the first weekend, the displayers come in and help out with that. It's just some miscellaneous things this isn't a commercial sales vendor thing. This is all, for the betterment of the community at no cost. So any sales that are made in the park are purely due for donations. For example, the Meaford Knights Hockey Club could set up a hot chocolate stand. The Optimist Club pays for the hot chocolate and then they generate those donations for their own purpose. They tried a private vendor once, a cookie truck or something. It didn't work well and they just to keep it all nonprofit. I also thought it was nice to have a bereavement tree in their park that honors the loss of young children. So, families grieving, they can go through the park and it honors the children. They have one volunteer that stands with the collection box with some cognitive challenges, but it works out for them and the community. He turns on the lights every day or every night and make sure that the gate is locked up. And then the entertainment really draws a big crowd. Orangeville has the campfire poets, and we have a lot of wonderful entertainment here too in Meaford. And then there's music as you're walking. There's Christmas carols, there's music playing as you're walking around the park, and it requires a lot of time and work. Financial, they estimate that lighting is their largest expense. The annual cost to run this is estimated to be around $5,000. This is actually the largest fundraiser for the Optimist Club. It actually generates the revenue for the full year. They get so much response from it. There's also government grants that may be available to the municipality, the Rotary Club, or the Optimist Club. So Donna helped me make a list of who to invite to the table. And on January 14th, we proposed this idea, and we had a meeting with our Deputy Mayor, Shirley Keaveney, and JD, who's with us today somewhere. JD was with us. Oh, there you are. Sorry, JD. I don't know how I missed you there. And Doris joined us with the Sydenham Optimist Club. And Doris also came from Orangeville. She had been there 40 years, so she's well aware of what we could attract and also for the youth, to get the youth involved, which I think would be nice too. And my neighbor Donna, myself. And then we invited Bill Lux of the Rotary Club. Unfortunately, he was out of the country, but hopefully we'll be seeing him in the near future and seeing if they'll join us. So at our meeting, we said, we don't want to call it Christmas in the Park. If this is doable, what should we call it? And Donna suggested One Magic Christmas from the film that was made here. And our deputy mayor shortened that to Meaford Magic Christmas, which I thought was appropriate. We talked about an opening date, that we would open it the weekend before Christmas on the Bay and the Santa Claus Parade. We felt that this would actually be an added attraction to complement Christmas on the Bay, generating an increase in the foot traffic that we bring through our town, and it would not conflict with our tree lighting ceremony or the Christmas on the Bay events. So then we said location. So we thought, we had the Hanukkah lighting in the library. I noticed the lights there, and it attracted a good 60 people for opening night. And we thought, could we use the library, start small and expand that, maybe like a worldly Christmas? And what's nice is when you're driving by Highway 26 is that it's visible. And could it be winter accessible to have a park with lighting that is also accessible? The second location we thought would be by the Red Apple. It would display on both sides. And it would be also visible while driving by, maybe people stopping furthermore to stopping at Christmas on the Bay that same weekend. And then ideally, we have McCarroll Park, which would be similar to the Christmas on the Park, the grand one. I found this drawing. I don't know if it's current or not. I know McCarroll Park is going through a renovation this year. And it's got pathways and walkways through it. It would be perfect. It also has walking to downtown. The location is ideal and also has some fencing already up. So to finish that off with more fencing is doable. And also, as we build it, we can start with spreading out the displays, and as it becomes more popular, more people get involved, we can turn into the million light park also. Then we turned it into a Christmas walk. We just carried on with all three locations. And we thought maybe for 2026, if it's doable, we start with the library and the Big Apple. It's like a 4-minute walk. And, with signage to say, carry on in 2027 realistically, we would look at then McCarroll Park unless it's overwhelming and we can do it sooner, but we're trying to be realistic with small steps to do that. So today we brought our Christmas wish list with us. And from the municipality, we weren't looking for financing, but we were looking some support in terms of the snow fence, the salt for the pathways, on a heavy snow day, maybe some help with clearing. I don't think the blowers would work, might knock over the displays, but just many hands help. The cost of the hydro that is used, the garbage removal, the insurance, and then what help with lighting the large trees, whether that would be through our local fire department or if the municipality has their own equipment with the buckets to be able to do that. And then on February 2nd, I'm doing the same presentation to the Rotary Club. And February 10th to the Optimist Club. 10% is the idea, 90% is execution. So we need some volunteers. The initial funding to get the lights up and going. And then obviously that would be coming back to Meaford's Magic Christmas to offset any of those costs. So that was just a thought that I just would love to bring it here and be a part of it with my neighbors and the community and our friends and bring something that brings everybody together that is not commercialized. So.
Maybe I can start by just thanking you very much, Judy. You are a very brave woman to bring this forward because we have a lot going on in Meaford. But and when I first looked at this, I thought, oh, but honestly, it's interesting, and you put a lot of thought and effort into the presentation. Thank you, and I'll open it up to other people, and I'll turn you right over to one of the Christmas on the Bay people here, Councillor Yeri.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Judy, for the presentation and concept. I love the concept. I love the concept because prior to being on council, I was in chamber, and prior to Christmas on the Bay, I actually thought about putting together a light festival for Meaford. So I did a lot of investigation. I actually talked to Stratford. I didn't talk to Orangeville because Stratford has a very famous and major festival, and I wish I talked to them instead of Orangeville because they scared the bejesus out of me because they're spending $250,000 on it. So my question is, I just wonder, did Orangeville actually have an overall budget? Stratford, and again, they didn't start at that amount. Obviously, they started small and they grew as well, and that's what it became. Very successful, great tourist draw. Ended up abandoning that and helped Christmas on the Bay instead and joined that board. But I think it's a great idea. My only concern is the cost. Stratford has the advantage of not only having the festival, they have a very large industrial base. So they get a lot of sponsorships that ends up help funding their light festival. So, and I'm not saying, I mean, we only have to look at Own Sound to see obviously what they do with their light festival as well. So can certainly be done on economy of scale. But I didn't know whether Orangeville talked about an overall budget of both inception and ongoing. I saw your $5,000 figure, and I just, if that's reality, that's great. It's just not what I was being kind of told when I was doing my initial look into it.
I guess it's the number of like the trees that you're lighting, the large trees and the number of trees we would have in McCarroll Park. You don't see that large number of trees at the library or at the Apple. It's smaller. The dollar figure, January's the time to buy them. They're on sale right now, and LED lights too. So, you know, it could be more, but then I also think that that's their fundraiser for the whole year. And five, you know, if a display, 10 people at $250, there's half of it already. And I think the cost is very doable. Like there's churches that have displays in there. It's not a big ask when you're looking between $100 to $200. And then the bigger ask would be from the larger companies. And I think it's, you know, it's not where you're selling something, but where you're contributing for a family to enjoy. And with the background in sales, I have no problem knocking on doors. So.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And first of all, Judy, I want to congratulate you on getting through your presentation in the 10 minutes. It was a lot of information. So yeah, well done. And you've done a tremendous amount of research on this and bringing, you know, this ask forward that that really is solid and well prepared. So I suggest, and I know that you'll be successful knocking on doors because you're just that type of person that people can't say no to. So I know you'll raise the funds that are needed, and how appropriate that we have the presidents of our Chamber of Commerce and Rotary right here in the room today to hear this. So I trust that you will go forward and do your part, and I would ask of our staff to, as we did for Christmas on the Bay, and I know that was a process with an MOU, but to look at this list and to give us a bit of a value of what Judy's ask is, so that that can be worked into the grander scheme as plans move forward. So I just ask our CAO just how you'd like to go about that piece of it.
Thank you very much. And to the deputy mayor, probably the best way of approaching this is like, I would like to see the opportunity to do a collaboration, because there's a few parties that I think need to come to the table. There's the Christmas on the Bay, obviously. There's the Kinsman with the parade, and then there's this group. So we want to make sure that early on, if this is being contemplated, that all of these three parties are aligned and we're very, very clear with what the ask is in totality. Because I know this year we've paid very close attention to the costs that are being absorbed or either provided by the municipality. I think by having all groups working on the same path, I think there's some efficiencies that could be made, and ultimately have this area sort of not just for a weekend, but extend it for a period of time, which I think would be beneficial. So I think what I'm hearing is the proposal is heavily reliant on individual sponsors. I'm hearing that it's required support from a couple of the clubs. So once we hear, I think, from those parties, whether or not there's the commitment from a staff perspective, we'd be happy to sort of align and pull together the collaborative approach. I know from a staff perspective, we were already planning on pulling those groups in, so there's more of an alignment on the Christmas on the Bay and the parade, because we want to get those logistics really fine-tuned. So this, I think the timing is very good. I would also say that there might be opportunities. I'm speaking completely off the top of my head right now. So we do have some projects that we may have an ability to install lights anyways. I'm a big proponent of full spectrum lighting. So it doesn't just have to be for Christmas. That the full spectrum lighting gives us the ability to change the lights any color. So you'll notice on the Meaford Hall, the 4 lights at the front of the Meaford Hall, we installed those lights this year. Those lights could be any color. And it's just, there's an app on the phone and we can make them red, blue, purple, whatever. So when I hear McCarroll Park, there might be an opportunity while we're doing McCarroll Park. Maybe we look at doing full spectrum lighting in some specific areas where they're always there. Their life expectancy is quite long and they draw hardly any power. So the timing might be right just to get sort of more out of the investment. And you know, when it comes time to light them, you just go to your phone and pick the color. I think there's some opportunities there, but I will say that we'll rely heavily on like the Rotary Club, the Optimist Club and Judy to come forward with moving this along. And we were planning on bringing those other two groups together anyway. So timing's right.
Councillor Ennis.
Thank you. Yeah, just to, through you, Mr. Mayor, to build on what Sean said too, I imagine that if we're able to time it kind of with an installation or other work in a park, things like outlets and things can also be kind of added into there. But to Judy, I was just curious if, I'm not familiar with this event in Orangeville and the space that they have. I'm just wondering if there is any kind of limit that you're aware of for like how many people kind of are able to buy into the participation. If you know, if there's any kind of major limiting factors, or if we're assuming that there would be enough space for just kind of everybody in the community to participate.
I don't know if there would be any limiting factors. I could check with them on that. I just know from my experience, I've never been where it's been overcrowded and I can't walk through.
Okay.
It depends on the days, the event, and what's going on, but it's a good question to ask, and I will definitely ask that. And I will add Kinsman Club to my list, my wish list. Thank you.
Well, it looks like the end of the questions. Thank you again, Judy, for coming forward, and thank you, CAO Everett, for your encouraging words, because I know there's a lot of expectations put on staff and these things, and you've helped with your very thorough presentation. So, and we have one further. It's a public question. Michael Ashmore is standing by to ask a public question. And he's doing that via Zoom, and I'm assuming on phone. Can you hear us, Michael?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. In fact, you could actually tone it down a little bit, and it'll be a little easier to hear, I think. So you have a question, go right ahead.
The question I have, I'm Mike Ashmore from Meaford. I'm asking council to pass a motion asking staff to present a referendum question on the November municipal ballot. On September 27th, 2022, I asked the council candidates if they would support a referendum question as to whether electors would be willing to host the TCE pump storage plant. Of the 12 present, 8 indicated they would support a referendum, 2 declined and 2 abstained. Of the 8 who supported that referendum, that question, 4 are sat at your table, at your council. Could you please expedite this question for the referendum and act on it, as time is running out? I understand March the 1st is the date the question has to be clarified. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael. I'm going to turn you over to CAO Everett for just a response to that in terms of particularly timing and also some of the issues surrounding adding a question to the ballot.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In regards to the adding of the ballot, question to the ballot, I think the process has been laid out in a previous staff report to council. The one piece, the nuance to this is with council have been provided the direction or the motion being brought forward in 2022, I believe. This may actually require a reconsideration because council voted on the direction to move forward as a willing host with conditions. So therefore, for council to consider something different, it would what I would normally see would require reconsideration. The reconsideration in our procedural bylaw has a number of conditions. One of those conditions would be an individual who would like to bring the question for reconsideration would have to have been a counselor that voted in the prevailing decision. So in that particular case, it would have to be a council member that voted in favor to support the conditional willing host. It also requires a 2/3 vote. So 5 of 7 would require to vote in favor for the reconsideration. So there's two nuances here. One, I think it's somewhat easy. However, we are up against serious time constraints, which, you know, our Director of Legislative Services had identified when the report was brought forward, that the timing is very tight. I would suggest we would probably be looking at having some special meetings of council to be able to get it in, which if that was the case, that's the case. The nuance on this one is the question in regards to the willing host, again, is something that council has already provided a vote and direction on. And our procedural bylaw is a little bit different than the one that I was used to, but with my read of it very quickly over lunch, those two nuances in regards to the motion having to come from somebody in the prevailing, and then that also requiring a 2/3 vote, is really the nuance that I think we would really have to consider further. So hopefully that gives you some insight, Mr. Mayor and Council, as far as what our procedural bylaw outlines for reconsiderations.
Does anyone on council have a question for me or for whoever I, pass it to? Councillor Urick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and more of a comment than a question, because Mr. Ashmore is referring to a debate that I remember participating in. Remember, and have recently received correspondence. Remember at the time it was consideration of a referendum, not actual. And I will say that when you get into this, when you're engaging in the debate aspect of this job, and then you get into it, and what you think you might be able to do once you're running, and what you realize what you actually can do once you're in, can be a wide gap. And I find that while I understand Mr. Ashmore's desire for a referendum, knowing what I know now, I couldn't support it because of what I've been told from literally legal opinion of what our control mechanism actually is. I wouldn't want to spend the time and energy and dollars on it, on something that we actually cannot control. So that is why we're putting our energy into a community benefits agreement, which is something we do have a modicum of control over, that we can then try and get a benefit for this community if the project moves forward. So, and I'm not going to use the word accusation, but the obvious intent here is to say that we promised there would be a referendum. And my recollection, it was a consideration of one if it was appropriate. And since being in this chair, I don't deem it as appropriate.
Anyone else wish to speak to it? Councillor Ennis?
Just for my own knowledge, I'd like to clarify through Mr. Mayor to CAO Everett. With what you said about the process there, am I essentially right in understanding that I would not be eligible to initiate that process?
Through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Ennis, yeah, because you weren't on council and you were not on the prevailing side, you would not be eligible to bring that motion forward.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, so it's a motion to reconsider and you have to have been part of the process. I'm not sure whether anybody who is around the horseshoe here is in a position to, but I would just say that they would have to probably serve a notice of motion today to have any kind of opportunity to get on.
Mr. Mayor, just if just for the convenience, the vote that took place at that meeting was, and I'll just go through because it was a recorded vote.
Mhm.
So Mayor Kentner voted for, Deputy Mayor Keaveney voted for, Councillor Bartley voted for, Councillor Bell voted for, Councillor Forder voted against, Councillor Greenfield voted against, and Councillor Urick voted for. So the two that would not be able to bring the motion forward would be Councillor Forder and Councillor Greenfield.
So I just repeat, anybody who wanted to bring that motion forward should, give notice today, and and whether that will fit inside the timeline, I don't know. I know the election is October 26th. It's not in November, so it's the timing is partly the issue, and also the nuances, as you say, of the policy. Does that answer your question, Mr. Ashmore? I think he is probably listening, but not no longer on the call. So we'll move on to council inquiries. Do we have any council inquiries today? Councillor Urick.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one, so I attended the last Meaford Chamber of Commerce meeting, which I enjoyed very much, and I think is a valuable. We've discussed at length how we think the Meaford Chamber of Commerce, particularly since we're not going to have a BIA, is going to be play a principal role in our community support mechanism and our business support mechanism. I did attend the meeting of my own volition, as I have done in the past. And I know the council used to have pretty regularly somebody that was attending. I think Councillor Bell, you were actually attending the chamber meetings once upon a time. My question is, and again, because we have a financial stake in this as opposed to many community groups, because at least that's what's proposed in the budget and we have done in the past, whether or not we should have either an allocated member that attends those meetings, or it could be on a rotating basis. Because I know, and Deputy Mayor might agree or disagree, but I found when I was president of chamber, it helped very much to have a council member there because they could answer questions in the immediacy regarding things that you were talking about and whether they were possible or what the pitfalls might be. So there was an advantage to that. And having various councillors taking turns doing that, I could see that being a real advantage because then they get an opportunity to truly see where the chamber's at, what possibilities they might be doing. So I think there's value in that. And I know that we are discontinuing all the advisory committees as of March, but this is obviously not actually a municipal entity, but it is yet municipally supported. So hence my just wondering whether or not we should have a council member kind of that does attend those on a regular basis and can report back, or at least it's a learning experience.
Any other thoughts around the table on that? Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I appreciate the opportunity to add on to Councillor Urick's comments. Yes, certainly, in my day as president, we did have a rep from council and a rep from the BIA, and that was very, very valuable. My personal struggle now is that the chamber meetings pretty much always fall on the day of county council, so it just doesn't work out for me to attend, but I can certainly see the value in doing so. And although it is kind of late in the term, there's no reason why an interested member of council couldn't attend the meetings, whether they were officially appointed or not. You could still certainly sit in and bring information back and forth. So I don't know if that's an option, just considering where we are in the term, but I definitely agree there is value in having representation there. So my question, who from staff is attending those meetings right now? I believe our small and medium business liaison is attending on a regular basis. So there is a linkage for communication at this point in time. Okay.
CAO Everett, did you have a comment?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just to the point, because the chamber is not an entity of of council. Typically what I've seen where council does have whether it be a guest status or an actual member status. It's best where if the chamber were to want that, the chamber would actually make a request to council to have a member of council sit to whatever status they would like. And then council, if they wish to fill that, would appoint, or they wouldn't appoint, they would make the recommendation of the councillor for the chamber to then appoint. That way it's crystal clear that it is not a committee or board of council. So that way there's no confusion as to council's role on the chamber. Thank you.
Councillor Bell?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The CAO's comments, I think, are spot on. I know at the Legion, we've invited people to come, and they have. And I think that's just the best way. And also, it doesn't limit, as Councillor Uhrig was saying, it doesn't limit that each and every one of the members of council can't go. You know, you can go and you can hook up with the Kinsman or anybody, and over the Sydenham Optimist Club, they'd love to see people and engage with people. So I think that I think as far as today's conversation, with the Chamber of Commerce being present in the room, that should the chamber want to have each and every one of us show up for some of the meetings, I think that most of us would likely be inclined to probably show up. So thank you.
Any other? Okay, we should move into our consent agenda. And we've got 3 items here. How would you like to deal with them? Anyone wish to pull any of these? Can we vote on them all together? Councillor Greenfield?
Yeah, actually, Your Worship, I'm going to have to declare a conflict on 918, the doctor physician.
Okay, yes, I see. So why don't we vote then on B and C together? So I need a mover and seconder to vote on items B and C in the consent agenda, moved by Councillor Forder, seconded by Councillor Ennis. Any discussion on either of those items, B and C? All in favor? And that's carried. So I should just, for the benefit of those who, don't have a script in front of them, we have just approved the award of the supply and installation of a new splash pad to Open Space Solutions in the amount of $332,261.25, including the municipality's non-refundable allocation of HST through the Canoe Procurement Group bid process. And second, authorize the mayor and clerk to enter into the necessary agreements. And item C, the recommendation was, be it resolved that bylaw 2026-06, being a bylaw to repeal bylaw 2022-01, be taken as read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. And that was a repeal of a recount policy, which won't be needed in the election in 2026. So now, if you would like to exit, Councillor Greenfield, we'll ask for a mover and seconder for the recommendation that Council of the Municipality of Meaford approve execution of a financial loan agreement between Dr. Rakowski and the municipality in the amount of $100,000 at 1% interest for a term not to exceed 5 years. Mover and seconder, Councillor Uhrig and Deputy Mayor Keaveney. Any discussion on this? All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you. So if someone would call Councillor Greenfield back, we'll move on to items for consideration. And the first, be it resolved that bylaw 2026-07, being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 60-2009 pertaining to lands known municipally as 599237 Second Concession North, be taken as read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Is there a mover and a seconder for this? Councillor Greenfield and Councillor Bell. Thank you. Discussion? Deputy Mayor Keaveney?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just had one question. I know the bylaw speaks to no further residential dwellings are permitted on this piece of farmland. So I'm curious to know then, does that mean that there can't be any ARUs? There couldn't be a basement apartment, or there couldn't be a granny suite or a tiny home or anything of that nature added to that particular piece of property? Because it's mentioned a couple of times there that any further residential development is prohibited.
Okay, we're going to get an official answer for you here.
So through you, Mr. Mayor. So this zoning amendment applies to two parcels. There's the severed parcel and the retained parcel. The severed parcel has the pre-existing farmhouse on it. In theory, if they applied and met the zoning provisions, they could. But the parcel, the rest, the farmland is being restricted totally. So it can never have any residential dwellings, no accessory residential dwellings of any kind on the farmlands parcel.
Councillor Urick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a point of clarification, on page 43, it's stated that subject property is currently approximately 104.7 hectares. I was just curious because as I was reading Ron Davison's report, it claimed that it was 42.376 hectares. Just wondering what that differential was.
So through you, Mr. Mayor. So with the 100, I probably meant to write acres. Because that's the approximate. And I wrote hectares by accident, but yeah. So that should be acres, 100 and so acres.
Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The report was well put together. I think it was all the information that we really needed to understand. In times past, we have had comment in the report. It mentioned that it might be nice for somebody to have some horses. In times past, there has been comment rendered about having a number of animal units, since the size of the property doesn't lend itself to having, a great number of cattle in the barn. Can you speak on that one? And in the report, it mentioned the septic system, that the proponent may be looking at upgrading that septic system. So if we pass this today, we have a little comment on, the barn and animal content, and that the comment about fixing up the septic, which is aged, will be done. Thank you.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, in regards to the livestock, so if the owner of the property ever wanted to bring in any horses or any kind of livestock, they would have to meet the required separation distances for that. Whether that could be met would be up to them, and the number that could be met would be dictated by that at a later date. In regards to, sorry, what was the second? The septic, yeah, the septic. They're currently working on refurbishing the septic and upgrading it to a modern standard. So it will be done in due course.
Any other questions? If you're ready to vote, all in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you very much for the help there. The next recommendation, be it resolved that bylaw 2026-08 being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 60-2009 to remove the holding provision 1 from the lands known as 108 Rainbow Beach be taken as read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. A mover and a seconder for this one, Councillor Forder and Councillor Greenfield. Thank you. Discussion on this one? Any questions? If you're ready to vote, all in favor? And that is carried unanimously. The next recommendation is, be it resolved that bylaw 2026-09 being a bylaw to establish fees and charges for municipal services, programs, and facilities for the year 2026 be taken as read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. A mover and a seconder. Deputy Mayor and Councillor Bell. Thank you. Any questions or discussion on this? Councillor Bell?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So council has probably seen fees and charges. This is likely our third time that we've for sure looked at this. My question is, we have a date coming up with the public on fees and charges. If we pass this today, what does that do to that meeting, to the general public coming and wanting to know about fees and charges? Because that's the third meeting that we have lined up in February. So if we say yes to this today, is it sealed? That, I guess that's my real question.
Thank you, through your worship, to Councillor Bell. Just to be clear, I believe what you're talking about is the day 3 of the budget day, and those are actually the user pay budgets. So that's slightly different than the fees and charges bylaw, which is being discussed today. So the user pay budgets are water and wastewater, Memorial Park, and the harbor budgets. So that's not the user fees. So this process would end today if council chooses to pass the fees and charges, which are the separate rates for usage.
I have okay, I'll bring my question if I don't hear it from Councillor Urick or Councillor Greenfield. Councillor Urick?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll throw the wrench into the gears. So, and again, tell me how to do this, Margaret, but yeah, this has came up every time we talked about it. And when it comes to the community bookings for Meaford Hall, again, I still take umbrance, and I'm going to actually make an amendment that they be reduced, because when I looked at it, and the Opera House bookings are going up, this is all community bookings only, not commercial. They're going up 33%, for 4 hours, 9 hours, 27%. The combined gallery, 74%, and 72% for 8 hours. Terrace room, 42%, and 10% for the terrace room for 8 hours. I went back and looked at the Recreation and Culture Strategic Master Plan, which goes from 2015 to 25. And I know I've brought up in the past that we're going to have to look at an updated ECDEV strat plan. This is another one that's going to have to be updated. But going even back to 2006, when this building was renovated, there were a series of points that were initiated in 2006. And then in 2015, they talked about, what is this building going to be used for? Point 6 of that, on the one page of that, is make culture accessible. This includes both cultural spaces and programs. More importantly, that the vision and mission had a clause in it about affordability and access. And the Community Service Department will aim to provide affordable programs, services, and access to facilities for children, youth, and parents, guardians. In doing so, the department will aim to ensure that the pricing of recreational and cultural services do not impede or reduce participation. So in a meeting or two or so ago, we talked about what the actual numbers were that were being indicated in losses in our public resources. And Meaford Hall came in at 400,000 at a loss, the arena 675, library 840, museum 300. I thought those numbers were really fascinating, because the arena is 675, and yet we're only putting up skating fees 1%. Yet this building, we're putting up anywhere from 30 to 70% the use of these rooms. I've heard it said in this room, that community bookings do not make up a very large amount of what actually happens in the hall. And if that's the case, these increases are not even going to be a rounding error on that $400,000 loss that happens. So I'm wondering, why are we making it more difficult for community groups to use this, or more expensive to use this, when I know some of them are already not using because of the expense, and then we're putting much more drastic increases than say the arena or the museum with its loss. We don't charge anything. I know these are public facilities that are for our benefit, but I just can't validate the cost, these increases on that for the community usages. That's why I would cap them, even at 10%. I would recommend capping those that I mentioned, just because I don't feel it's fair to the community groups that I believe contribute. And if we go through the economic report, we talk about, and Deputy Mayor said earlier about this, the demographics of this municipality is changing. We're getting younger. That means more use by its resources. And tourism is is becoming has been for a long time, but it's not recognized as such, which is why we need the vision planning to determine exactly what the importance is. Cultural, culinary cultural visits are way up. And that wouldn't exist without Meaford Hall because a lot of those restaurants wouldn't. So long-winded way of saying, I want to cap those at 10%. I'm not sure the process.
So are you going to bring forward a motion?
I'm bringing forward an amendment to that, which I
Like
presume
an,
would
sorry,
have to be
an amendment to the motion that's before us.
correct.
Margaret, how's that sitting with you?
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Councillor Urick. So I just want to clarify to make sure first that I understand what your amendment would be, and then we can talk about the options for how to proceed. So your proposal is that Schedule M of the fees and charges be amended under the community bookings to have the rates increased by no more than 10%, by 10% of that column for 2026 rather than what's there. So there's not one that you would want to be increased less or more than 10% in all of those columns.
Nope, I specifically outlined the Opera House 4 and 9 hours. The galleries, the same thing, 4 and 8 hours, the terrace room, 4 and 8 hours. Because those are the predominant, the other increases weren't as substantial. And those are the things that are used predominantly by community groups.
Okay,
So
so
it's just pulling out those 6 categories.
okay. That's helpful to clarify. So we can structure that amendment as long as everybody's clear on what that proposal is. Depending on, did you want to discuss that?
So what page are you, when we were talking about the amendment for section M, and I'm still scrolling.
Page 101 is the community bookings for the Meaford Hall. That's on the today's agenda is 101.
147 is the report, so which page there?
37.
Yes.
So, Your Worship, I think the next question would be, did we want to deal with the amendments? If there's only one amendment, we can deal with that now. Alternatively, we can pull the schedules that everybody would like to discuss and pass the rest of them and then deal with the amendments.
Sure, we need a seconder for the amendment, seconded by Councillor Greenfield then, and what's your pleasure? Will we just extract that one and come back to it?
I'm fine, but I'm still gonna be that guy, because I'm gonna put one more in. In that the Meaford Theatre Company, we're actually asking to, we charge them 5,000 flat a year. And we're now asking to pay an additional, is it 16, 17 for utilities. And I'm not sure we ask any other organization to pay utilities, particularly to a group who's put $25,000 of their own money into an asset building, as well as planning to put more into improvements on that. And I know we've had in the conversation, Pat, and I agree that any improvements have to be done in scope, in concert with regular proper regulations and staff cooperation and governance and guidance. But I just don't feel that that is fair to a group to be singled out as that when I'm not sure we do that with anybody else.
CAO Everett?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So in regards to the 1,600, that would have to be a not a reconsideration. That would have to be a rewrite of the agreement, because there is an existing agreement that actually has that $1,600 for the utilities in it. So if council wished to provide direction that though the agreement be renegotiated, to have that removed, then that's something that I would suggest, or else we'll have an outstanding agreement with direction from council to collect 1,600 for utilities. So that one's just not as easy just to remove 1,600. It would be that for clarity for staff in the future, having that changed in the agreement would be prudent.
So that Is that supposed to be part of this amendment? I think it's, you know, now we're mixing, I think you need a separate
No,
amendment
that's,
for that.
thank
because-
you. I think what we'll do then, we'll stick with the first motion, which was the Schedule M change, and I can sort of read what we've worked on for that. We have a mover and a seconder for that motion. So we would go through any of the proposed motions for the various schedules. And then at the end, we can do an amended motion to approve all schedules, if that makes most sense to council at this time.
So you're wanting to hear any and all proposed amendments at this point?
No, sorry, my suggestion is let's work through this proposed Schedule M through Councillor Urick, and then if there are additional ones, we can go from there.
Okay.
So if you're happy for me to read the proposed motion with Allison's help, that Schedule M of the fees and charges bylaw be amended to replace the following fees under community bookings with a 10% increase over their respective 2025 rates. Opera House 4 hours, Opera House 9 hours, Combined Galleries 4 hours, Combined Galleries 8 hours, Terrace Room 4 hours, and Terrace Room 8 hours. So that's the motion that would be reflected should this amendment be approved, and then everything is approved after that.
Okay, so my next step is what I'm asking. Do we vote on this amendment? Is it okay? Yeah, and oh yes, Harley second. Okay, is there any discussion of the motion that is on the floor? Harley.
Your worship, and thank you, Councillor Urick, for bringing this forward. Just a comment that again at the arts and culture presentation down at Roma, arts and culture do not necessarily have to refer to professional activities. It's the down home local grassroots culture that's also needs to be included, and I think that applies more to what Councillor Urick is trying to protect here by bringing forward the lower fees. I believe there are a lot of young people, elementary school kids, and certainly secondary school students that yes, they can get involved in a performance at the school, but wow, performing on the stage of Meaford Hall, that's a huge asset for them. And I think that's a great comment on our municipality to be able to have a welcoming at the hall and an affordability. So I think these lower rates are definitely going to be an advantage. Thank you.
You ready to vote on the amendment? All in favor? And that is passed 6-1. So are there any further amendments, or are we going to try and, I don't think you probably can deal with the whole document until we do get the amendments moved out of the way. Councillor Bell, did you wish to?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I understand the thinking. I do. You referenced the arena and maybe the museum and things, but I believe, and you can definitely correct me, Councillor Urick, you said, maybe it was just to myself one time, that we're prepared to give a break to like minor hockey, but we're not prepared to give a break then to performing arts. Have I got you kind of correct on that? Okay. So one of the things about the Meaford Hall, when you referenced 2006 and 2015, when those of us today go down to the Meaford Hall right today, and we take a look at that situation, it's beautiful. It's fantastic. I've had people who have worked in acoustics tell me the acoustics probably are second to none in a lot of venues. So it's fantastic. But back in 2006 and what you referenced in 2015, there was a very strong comment about the Meaford Hall and its costing, and when will this pay for itself? There have been no comments like that on an arena. There haven't been comments like that on a Blue Dolphin pool, but the Meaford Hall was a lightning rod looking into the future. And there was comment about, well, when is it going to be done? And how much is it always going to cost us? And as time has passed, we're going to get that hall basically paid off on its debenture fairly soon. And so those comments that were rendered about making it pay for itself, really time has passed and they're doing well. There was even conversations at council about the bookings that were done. Who can you attract? What will the revenues really be like if we could really get someone to come that's a big ticket drawer? And there's been effort made consistently by those members of our staff who've been hired to do that. And they work really diligently at trying to bring in those top level acts. So what's that about? Bringing in professional actors and professional performers, to my mind, is different than the Minor Hockey Association. I think you agree with that yourself, Councillor Uhrig. So having a reduction on what can be paid and what can be gleaned, I think that they have been paying this along the line. And I think that looking for increases would be something that they'd be prepared to have. The groups that you've mentioned, I mean, Rotary Club meets at the, so does the Legion. We meet downstairs. Sure, we would love to meet for a lot less, right? So when the vote was called about to support the just going for 10%, I reserved my vote on that. I'm thinking that the performance and the requests for the price per hour, half days and so on, I think it can be met the way it is. So a wholesome conversation around the horseshoe,
Well, we've had the
but
vote.
I was just reserved on it. Thanks.
Okay, that's fine. But we have voted on it, and I thought you were maybe saying here that perhaps there is room to actually increase prices for the big acts that seem to have no problem meeting the costs that we have there. So but that would be a conversation for another day, I would say. So I have one question about this, but I don't know about other. Have everybody had their questions? It's a simple question. Just I noticed in the STR report today that a $50 registration fee is being incorporated in the fees and charges, but I didn't find it in there. Am I confusing reports? It could easily be.
Through Mr. Mayor. So for us to put that fee in, that would be pre-assumption of council's direction. So if council were to move forward with that report, then we could do an addition at some.
The report says that it's already in, that's all, and so that's why I looked for it. So no problem. The STR report says in it that there is. Go ahead, Amy.
Thank you, Your Worship. It's my understanding, so this was a report written by our STR group. So the manager of bylaw enforcement services had added that detail, noting that a $50 sort of review fee was already incorporated into that schedule of the fees and charges bylaw. So this could be incorporated under that general fee. So it's
Okay.
not a specific $50 STR review fee. It's more of a general review fee under the bylaw schedule that exists. Yeah.
Councillor Greenfield?
Through you to Ms. Can, on that subject, on this $50 subject, we have this report coming along shortly about the STRs. I was gonna question this $50 fee. I thought it was quite light for the registry part, so I was gonna suggest when we get into the SDA discussion that I'm not happy with that $50.
Okay, Margaret?
Thank you, Your Worship. My suggestion would be when we get to the report, if there's a change that's made, my understanding is we're using a current charge and applying that through the suggestion of the STR report. Should council wish to make a change, we could certainly bring an amendment to the fees and charges at that time, once council's discussed that separately. So for now, just as a recap, we've got one amendment to the current fees and charges proposed by law. If there are any other proposed amendments, we should deal with those at this time. And if there are questions to the process or anything else, we can talk about that as well.
So are there any further questions or comments on this and whether or not they're going to lead to an amendment? Councillor Greenfield?
I'm not going to make an amendment because I have mentioned my disapproval of the bag tag situation. I mentioned that before, didn't get any support, so I don't think there's much use in me making an amendment for it. But I will say that I am not going to vote in favor of the waste collection section of this bylaw. I'm good now with we made the changes at Meaford Hall, but and I'm good with all the other fees, but I don't want to vote against the entire bylaw just because of one item, but I feel very strongly about the one item.
And I don't know if there's a workaround that at all. I think you just have to absent yourself from the vote. Okay, are we ready to vote on this? There's no other okay, I'm going to call the vote. All in favor? And as amended, that's yes. 6-1.
Thank you, Your Worship. If there is somebody who is not voting in the affirmative, it's best to just say all those against, and then we can have that on the record as well, especially for the audio version of this.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So sorry, if somebody on council hasn't voted in the affirmative, then it would be helpful to have the comment are there any against? And
Yes,
then
okay.
Councillor Greenfield in this case could put up his hand against, and then we've got
Okay.
that for the record.
Alrighty, then the record is complete. The next item is water and wastewater. The recommendation that be it resolved bylaw 2026-10 being a bylaw to adopt water and wastewater rates for the year 2026 be taken as read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. A mover and a seconder, Councillor Forder and Councillor Greenfield. Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? Oh, you have to be fast.
Thank you, Mayor. Quickly. No, and I have no qualms with the increase. The only thing I was going to say is I just comment. I think we need to add a communication piece around it. We've had a local resident who did a lot of analysis of this increase, and it was very interesting to see kind of how the numbers trued out. Because while it is a 5% and an 8% increase, that's on delivery. And when they look at how consumption impacts that, this resident happens to live in the same complex that I do. And so they looked at our consumption and the fact that we only use 4 or 5 cubic meters, that 5% increase is actually going to true out on the bill is actually only being about a 2.1% increase because it depends on consumption. It was the same thing for 10 and it was till you got to about 15 that it actually started to get into the point where it started to even get close to break even. 20, then they were paying significantly higher. So where I'm going with that is we've had so much talk and obviously complaint and concern about the fact that these rates are what they are, and we can't stop that. But I think we need people to realize that the impact may not be that true 5% on their residential bill. So not that that's gonna lessen the impact of that 5% of delivery, but just it's not necessarily a true 5% increase. And I think a communication piece to that end could serve some value, so people understand what their true increase is going to be on their monthly bill. Because at the end of the day, that's what they're concerned about, what they're paying, not what that portion of it that's going to increase that, what the impact of it is.
Tori?
Through your worship, my understanding is that right now our finance team is working with environmental services to get some of that communication around during those budget days so that we can show what those impacts do look like. Because as you said, as we were running some examples, some of the users might actually see no change in their bills because the first two tiers are actually lower than what we are we're seeing in 2025 as the flat water rate. So with the tiers, if you're within those first two, the impact is not as significant, and potentially there is no change. Whereas if you're a higher water user, and that's the intention of this model, those are the people who might see that more significant impact. But if people become aware of their usage, there is ability to keep that rate down. Obviously, as we go through in future years, that 5% increase will have more of a significant impact because we're adding that 5% onto that now current rate, whereas because we've changed the model from there isn't won't be as significant of a change from 2025 to 2026. As well, just to note the model that we have, the base rate is higher for commercial users, so those commercial users are getting a more significant increase as well, but that helps with our residential users and helps with some relief on that end. So that's the model that was presented to council and how we've been proceeding.
Thank you for that, because truly, at the end of the day, when you say you're going to put something up 5%, that's all people hear. So they hear that and it's rote. So at least this way, if there's a messaging out there that they should do some analysis, because that might not be the impact. That goes a long way. We've sat through 3 of these things and I'm still not sure I get it. So, John, the public sits out there and just sees that here's that number and it's just like, so thank you for that.
Are we ready to vote on this one? All in favor? And again, that's carried unanimously. And now I need a motion to move into committee of the whole. Mover and a seconder, Deputy Mayor Keaveney and Councillor Urick. And we're doing that at 2:52 p.m. The first item is a recommendation that Committee of the Whole recommend Council of the Municipality of Meaford, 1, approve the continuation of the TL1 urban barriers for the 2026 patio season with participating businesses covering the full cost of barrier rentals in accordance with the Municipal Act of 2001 and in the interest of cost recovery and also fairness to the broader business community. And 2, direct staff to continue administering the seasonal patio program, including coordination with participating businesses to ensure compliance with all applicable accessibility, fire, and building code requirements. Mover and a seconder for this, Councillor Bell and Councillor Forder. Thank you. Discussion. Oh, are you going to present on this, Amy?
I certainly can speak to it, Your Worship. So seems like a lifetime ago, December 15th, we brought a report forward to council with a bit of a wrap up from the 2025 patio season. And as a result of that report, council requested a bit more information on the costing details. So we have brought forward this addendum with information about several options on barrier materials and structures that could be rented or purchased for council's information as a bit of an add-on to that initial report. So you'll notice that the recommendation remains the same to meet our procedural expectation, but council certainly has more information now as far as the cost of those things for thought and discussion. So happy to answer any specific questions you have. This was a group report too, so it's a lot there.
Okay. Councillor Forder.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, appreciate this report. My question was with regards to the number of businesses that had been identified as sort of being eligible for patios, and if a certain number of them, if too many of them were interested in patios, that there might be a cap on parking stalls that are converted to patios. But it didn't mention anything about what that cap number looks like. Is that something that you guys have thought about? And maybe you could just give us a little bit of clarity on that, just for information. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Porter, through you, your worship. This wasn't an item that council, or rather that staff had a specific idea on what an appropriate cap would be. But thinking in a great scenario where we have tons of interest in patios, that costs us a number of parking spots consequently. So just putting that forward for council's consideration. I'm not sure what our transportation friends say about the number of spots we have, and the number that we could sort of give up to the patio spaces. So just some food for thought there.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And with your indulgence, I do have two questions. I'm curious to know if we have any commitment to date from restaurants, how many restaurants this year might want patios, and have they provided any feedback on the potential desire of council to have them pay for the barriers?
Thank you, through your worship. We have only January, and we have already one restaurant reaching out with interest in the 2026 patio season. To my knowledge, we've received no feedback on that December 15th report and the costing scenario. So,
Councillor Yorick?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I get to play the role of contrarian today. So I have heard from a couple of the restaurants who are planning to, and yeah, they're to go from $1,000 to $7,000 is fairly significant. And again, so I'm going to hearken to, you're right, it did not change, it was the rental. And when I read through this, I was trying to understand the permeations of what purchasing what these would look like. CAO rightfully pointed out last time that, yes, we're not, as a municipality, we're not to be subsidizing this. But there's a difference between paying for it outright and saying it's theirs versus purchasing it and then charging them over years to say that you can pay that down as opposed to renting every year. So that's what my thought was last time around on this is, would it be cheaper to actually buy them and to then have them so that we don't have to do this? Again, at Roma, the arts and culture, I went up and spoke to a couple of the speakers after, and I did make cases at the last council meeting about 3 communities who did studies and found that patios not only benefited the restaurants, but they benefited the whole downtown core greatly. Studies were done, and I went up and I asked the speakers as well, their take on that as well. They agreed 100% that culinary tourism is a thing nowadays, that Meaford actually has restaurants that people come and visit to now, and patios work. I know there is a proposal that back lanes could eventually be that, and to shift into that at that time, I think it was a great idea to take it off. But until that's a possibility, I see this as a value for people that are actually coming to our community. Gives them a reason to stop, and then hopefully stop at other shops when they're here. So I see an intrinsic value in it, and I'd like to see the comparison of buying it and doing that over a few years versus renting it every year and having that base cost.
Okay, Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I see this as a time for some polarity thinking because there are various arguments that could be posed in relation to this report. Because, I mean, having been a restaurant owner myself for many, many years in this community, I think I do see this as a bit of a bonus for those particular businesses. I would certainly have felt that way in my own. I would have felt very guilty if the municipality came along and said, we're going to give you $7,000 worth of barriers. I do think, you know, the restaurants benefit greatly from having the patios, and it was a quick reaction during COVID that we supported, and rightfully so, to help not just, the restaurants, but our downtown core. But I think we're well beyond COVID now, and that we need to, get serious about, the financial implication of this. Because again, I do see these as a bonus being provided by the municipality to, a handful of businesses or less. So, yeah, there are different ways of looking at this.
I'm kind of disappointed that we don't have the pictures in a slide deck for the people to see. Like these are, it's interesting to look at the different options for patios, and I would seem to have lost that capacity to show those in the. Sorry.
Thank you, Your Worship. We can arrange to just show those appendices if that's helpful, but the public does have it as part of the presentation. And if we showed them on these screens, the outgoing images wouldn't be included. It's only the camera view. So for the audience, if they'd like to see, we can certainly arrange a printed copy. It's probably easier. If you'd like it displayed on the screen, we can do that. But anybody watching wouldn't get the benefit of that.
We did it for years. Like nobody saw those watching the that maybe they didn't. Go ahead, Councillor Yard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and yeah, I respect Deputy Mayor's comments, although the only one word in there that I didn't like was give. And I did not say anywhere in there that this should be given. This should be paid for over years. That's the point. And I thought that these barriers, it's interesting, we heard the Christmas presentation today. We were in the parade, the Santa Claus parade, and there were concerns about, particularly at the pinch point around where they make the final turn to go up to the arena, that there was grave safety concerns around there. Purchasing these things could not only be a benefit for the patios, but they could also be used for other functionality throughout the year. Hence, that's why I see this as why spend money on rental when it could be an ownership package. And I did see in the report that it said there was no issue with storing them. So I don't see this. And again, I will harken back to reports have been done post-COVID that show that patios are definitely a benefit to communities, not a hindrance. And it's not a benefit for sole businesses. It's meant to be for the whole community.
So wouldn't you need a motion to change anything here? So it's.
I was hoping to ask for an explanation, get a little bit more explanation, because I read through these in the patio options analysis, and there were 2 or 3 difference. The numbers were exactly the same, and I wasn't sure exactly where you were going with this in terms of, because I had asked specifically about a purchase and amortization kind of process to this, as opposed to an ongoing rental basis. And so these would be paid for over the years by the people using them, i.e. the restaurants. It would just be amortized over years. We're giving $100,000 to a doctor on a 1% term to renovate their property. Economic development, benefits to the community. What makes it benefits to come here? We got Docks and Ice coming. Are they going to be happy? It's not that time of year, but when people come and do Summerfest, that they like sitting on the patios. This is an economic benefit beyond just helping that sole business. So my point is, my question is, how does the ownership model vary as compared to the rental model?
I'm sorry, CAO Everett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the rental model, when we're dealing with a number of restaurants, and I believe the report identifies the number of restaurants that could actually have patios. We don't know that until every year the restaurant owner says, I want a patio. So we're not in the business of buying these barriers for the what if 8 restaurants want these, and then we store them. So the rental gives us that ability, to be honest with you, and it's the responsibility of the restaurant owner. If they're having an extension to their operations, we can provide them on a rental basis. The other thing, on a purchase basis, I think the report also identifies we're not installing. like the equipment that's required, that would be a third party to do that. And therefore, even the use of those barriers for the Santa Claus parade, they are not barriers that we would be using. Because they're interlock and we would not want to pay a third party to come in, put them in place at 4 o'clock on a Saturday and make sure they're back for 9 o'clock picking them up. So they're not really barriers that we would use for those types of special events. When we take a look at this, the patio piece, there are existing businesses that have patios that have the real estate within their own parcel to be able to have a patio. These ones are benefiting from the request of using the sidewalk. And during our discussion, you know, we looked at, does it make sense if, you know, we have a couple of these patio or business owners that want to have patios in one block? Do you actually reverse it? Do you actually let them put the patios on the sidewalk and we actually bring in the barriers and just get rid of all the parking on the one side and have the thresholds for accessibility, but where the parking spots are today, that actually becomes your walking path. I've been here a short amount of time, but I can tell you when I first got here, one of the biggest concerns were patios that were extending beyond their storefront was an issue with their neighbors. The other thing was the parking that it was being taken away for those businesses that did not have patios were being impacted. So we're in this situation that no matter what we do, there's going to be a pro and a con. I always fall back to the municipal act and just, if this is benefiting the owner specifically, the municipality is not permitted to give that bonus. Now, if council said, just use the barriers and get rid of all that parking, I could actually make the argument, then that's fine. The general public get to use that new walkway. But I'm also not silly to think that those businesses that front that section, that all the parking would be removed, probably would not be real happy with all their parking being taken. So this is, and Deputy Mayor pointed out, this was a response to trying to get businesses able to get open for COVID. The downtown Meaford is not set up for these. I would say our own main street is way too encumbered as it is, even with some of our own appliances and amenities that we're putting. And I could go to different blocks of the downtown core that there should be nothing on the sidewalks that are from a business because it's our liability. Sidewalks should have a free, clear path for the pedestrian to walk on. And there was a ton of work that was done and really, really good work on accessibility. Anytime that we are encumbering our sidewalks, we have to be mindful that the level of accessibility is being reduced. And quite frankly, our sidewalks on Main Street, I know I've had lots of discussions with a couple of members of council, they're not big sidewalks. When you put trees in there, when you put bikes in there, light standards in there, all of a sudden that sidewalk, if you want a free, clear, unobstructed path, we really don't have a lot of room on our sidewalks. They're to a standard, but I hear a lot about, you know, the economic development piece. You know, I look at Collingwood, measure Collingwood's sidewalks. It's a heck of a lot different in width than what we have. So, you know, at the end of the day, it's a great program. I would suggest, you know, rentals is the best way because we don't know from year to year whether restaurant A is going to be on or restaurant B. And we don't know if whether or not maybe 4 or 5 or 6 restaurants want to get into the patios, because that's a whole different discussion, right? Because that's where we really start impacting how much encumbrance onto the sidewalks that we have. So hopefully that's helpful. The one piece I just want to make clear, because I've heard it a number of times, my understanding, we've never had the ability to, on the screen, have a report that projects on the virtual side. It's only ever been in the confines of this room. And if we want to have reports for specific reasons, we can, but it does not go out into the virtual land.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Can I just ask, it seems like a really good idea for our small and medium business liaison to canvass our restaurant owners ASAP and find out, whether there is, what their concerns are and what the interest is and who's in and who's out, and
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I believe Jess has actually went around and had good discussions. But yeah, always, I know Jessica's always out and about and more than happy to continue those discussions.
yeah, I know that some of them may be out of the country or something at this time of year. So, okay, are you ready to vote on this, or do you want to, Deputy Mayor, you've got
Mr.
something?
Mayor, I just wanted to make a quick comment if I may, and I just wanted to clarify that I'm not opposed to the patios for sure. And I do appreciate, the benefit that they bring to the downtown. But I also wanted to remind council that we had a very thorough and professional and thoughtful presentation brought to us not too many months back by a business owner who has a business that is, between the restaurants, and we heard clearly the impacts on that business. So I just think it behooves us to remind ourselves that we need to consider all aspects of this decision, the pros and cons of the patio, and also the impact on the other business owners, and the fact that in my mind, I will support the CAO's comments that these barriers be rented and charged back to the business owners who will be benefiting from having that addition onto their business of having a patio over the summer.
Going to call the vote. If you're ready, all in favor? So that is 4, 5, 5 against 1. In this case, okay. And let me ask, is there anyone not in favor? There. Thank you. The next item is the recommendation that Committee of the Whole recommend Council of the Municipality of Meaford, 1, approve the project plan generally as outlined in Report Development 2026-02 regarding the short-term rental regulation project plan, and 2, endorse the initiation of a short-term rental regulation program. A mover and seconder for this. Councillor Forder, and seconded by Councillor Greenfield. Thank you. Discussion on this item. You want to go first, Deputy Mayor?
Sure, and probably we'll come back again, Mr. Mayor, with your indulgence. Yeah, I'll start out with one question, because I think we all heard from a very concerned resident this morning who was questioning the timeline. So on her behalf, I will ask if there, and I know we've discussed this before, but is there any way to tighten up the timeline from 2028, bringing that down at least into 2027?
Through Mr. Mayor to the Deputy Mayor. If council said 2027, I will say that 2027, that would be with a new term of council. I really think it's important that we get the administrative monetary penalties program lined up to help support the short-term accommodation piece. I would say the way we've presented this, so there's two big things. One is, I think council is going to need to have to really consider whether or not there's an amendment to the official plan for the 3-bedroom. I think that is something that I think is going to take some time. Now, if council just simply said, no, we're not interested, we don't need an official plan amendment, I would say that the 2027 could actually be hit. But I would also say, I would suggest that there's probably going to be a lot of resistance of capturing those that are 3-bedroom or wanting more than 3-bedroom. So there's that aspect. So to me, that is the biggest nugget. The second piece I do want to also identify is we have existing bylaws today that can be used to enforce those issues that typically are heard that come with short-term accommodations. It's typically noise. Typically noise. So we have a noise bylaw that we could use. We have a parking bylaw that we could use. And the other one that typically gets attached to short-term accommodations, but very rarely is it ever seen as actionable, as property standards. Because typically people who are using or offering their place for accommodation, the property standards are usually quite good, right? So if we truly have bad actors in the short-term accommodation world, we can look after those. It took me about better part of a month and a half for me coming into this municipality and sort of thinking that I had it all figured out and I could do this, and then realizing this is completely the opposite to where my former employer was, where Meaford actually permits short-term accommodation. Where I was previously, there's only a specific area that permits, and even with that, there are conditions. So we have a municipality in Meaford that actually allows for short-term accommodation, and it's cottage rentals and no more than 3 bedrooms. And so there's a bit of a change in, now we're going to license something that we actually permit. And I will say the biggest issue is we can have a Loctite short-term accommodation, short-term rental regime. It's all going to come down to the enforcement. And the enforcement, in my mind, and I believe it's been proven, having a strong administrative penalty program is the answer to be able to effectively and efficiently enforce the license. But like I say, we have that right now in our own bylaws. And the reality is, and I've had this discussion with a few members of council, I want to be very, very cautious. I fully support us getting into a licensing regime. I just want to be really mindful that we have existing bylaws today that we are not enforcing. And not on a staff perspective, because it'll be the way bylaws are set up. Council gives us direction, gives staff direction. What bylaws do you want us to proactively enforce? And what ones do you want us to enforce on a complaint basis? I will say that you'll hear from me this year coming from, we need to address those bylaws and which ones are proactive and which ones are complaints. I will say this with full transparency. I think property standards needs to be put on a proactive standard, because I think that's one of our most pushing issues as far as the municipality. But with the short-term accommodation, 2027, I would say, would be doable with that provision of, if you don't want the official plan amendment. If you want the official plan amendment, 2028 is where we would need to be, because the official plan amendment is actually a lengthy process. And I do think it will be the determination, and I'm just saying this guesstimation, if it's 3 and under, we will want to have a very, very strong administrative monetary penalty for those who are operating as a short-term accommodation without a license, because I do believe that keeping it at 3, we'll still see a percentage of the existing short-term accommodations not getting licensed. That they may have already 4, 5, 6 bedrooms, and without a licensing regime. And I will say with full clarity, we may have a number of these short-term accommodations that are already operating non-compliantly, because you can only have 3 bedrooms. The difference is they may be advertising for an occupancy of 6, but when they're actually booking, yeah, I've got 6 bedrooms, so you can actually have 12. So it's that fine line, but I do think the zoning bylaw is something that, or the official plan is something that council really, really needs to consider, because it will be the basis of how good this licensing regime is. And to the earlier point about the cost of the permitting, once we go into a licensing regime, that's where you'll see the higher fee, because that is where you really get into the nuts and bolts of their setup. The registry was basically a glossary, and quite frankly, and I will say, it's really to find out who's out there, like who's operating their premise properties as a special or as a short-term accommodation. And then, we've also made the suggestion that those who come forward in the registry would also be available to have that first intake. Because I do know in other municipalities where they just put everything in 1 year, typically these things are 2-year licenses. The problem is when you let everybody in at once, you get 1 year when everybody's coming back in to get new licenses, and then that second year, there's nothing. And we are only required, or we're only able to collect the fee to what our costs are. Like, so the short-term accommodation licensing program can't be a moneymaker for the municipality. We have to be very clear on, if this is what the license cost, here's the breakdown of actually what it's costing us to actually do that program. And you can't include bylaw officers to that cost, because they're enforcing the license. You can't penalize the license holder the cost of the bylaw officer to enforce. So there's a lot of nuances that we have to figure out. So, but I would say that official plan is the dictator as to whether or not we can make it quick or not.
Councillor York?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, CAO Everett. That's great explanation. And it does make me lean towards the OP, because at the end of the day, I don't agree that just because somebody has 1, 2, or 3 bedrooms, that they're not going to be an issue. You can have many party houses in a 2-bedroom accommodation, and we know we already have a pretty responsible STA group out there who we know has larger quantity capacity. Curious to know whether their neighbors have ever complained, how many official complaints do we get about them? So I don't believe the 3-bedroom limit is the be all end all. I think that's the problem. 100% agree that it's got to be the administrative or the monetary penalty has got to be the carrot and stick. So whatever time it takes to do that is what I would encourage and support, because I think it's not fair to the existing businesses who have already been around for years and who are not having problems, who get penalized because of bad actors who are creating problems and are getting all the attention. So I tend to lean towards that, but I do like deputy mayors. Just is there any way of escalating that would be great. I don't know what it takes to move an OP, so whatever it takes to move that. And I don't know, you obviously need some kind of a motion or amendment to do that. And I'd be willing to make the motion or the amendment to change the OP to make it more based on penalties than it is on number of bedrooms. It's based on the actual bylaws of enforcing what we can, i.e. property standards, i.e. noise, i.e. parking. Those are the barriers we should be using, not just the number of bedrooms. You can craft that however you like.
Any other questions from council? Any other discussion? Okay, I'll go with the Council Greenfield and then get from there.
Thank you, Your Worship. First of all, I guess when I started reading the report, I thought, oh, God, we're 3.5 years at this, and we're talking 2.5 more years, but having read it and reread it, I see there are steps to be taken and there are timelines that involve these steps. I mentioned the registry, yes, it's imperative that we have the registry, and I hope the municipality can convey the message to those who want to be in the STR business that there is an advantage, a big advantage of having an early registry with us, and I think that needs to be broadcast out there. I mentioned before a $50 fee. I understand some SDRs realize $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 income for their owners a year, and I think there were a couple of places in our fees and charges bylaw where it said examining certificates was $51 an hour. So, and I imagine some of these registrations will take some, there's a second call or, for some clarification. So I'm wondering if the $50 is going to be adequate, but the administrative monetary policy, penalties, and it says that you're bringing more information forward soonish about them. These penalties, maybe we're not that far ahead yet, but these penalties I'm assuming they can be appealed. I'm assuming they can be challenged. Does that open a whole new box of problems for the system?
So through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Greenfield. So the administrative monetary penalty, the benefit is, there's a number of benefits. First, when we go to the provincial offences court, anytime that we're at court as a municipality and we've laid the ticket, it's up to us to show the other person's guilt. With administrative monetary penalty, it's actually reversed. So it's the person that we've charged, it's their responsibility to prove their innocence. The other thing is that appeal is to a screening officer, and that screening officer is a member of the municipality staff who cannot be in any way, shape, or form tied to the actual charge. So they'll present, and I can tell you that usually now in most municipalities, that screening officer, that appeal is actually done virtually. And you can get quite a few of them done pretty quickly. If there's an appeal to the screening officer's decision, it's not the appeal. The appeal is not based on the decision. It's on the basis of process. So very rarely will the decision ever be appealed or upheld by a hearing officer, because it's not actually on the decision of the screening officer. It's on the process that was followed. And as long as we're following our process, that works. The other benefit to the administrative monetary penalties that the POA does not have is if an individual fails to pay, we can put it on their taxes. So we're getting the money. So, and then I will say the last true benefit to administrative monetary is more on a financial aspect. When our charges go to the provincial court, we probably get in the neighborhood of maybe 23 to 26% of the actual fine back. The rest of it stays at the county. With administrative monetary penalty, we keep 100%. So, parking tickets for sure should go to administrative monetary penalties. The sewer use bylaw should go. The other piece with administrative monetary penalties is council sets them. So we do not have to go to the province to have our fines approved. Now, they can't be over, I always forget the word that they use, but they can't be exorbitant. They have to be somewhat reasonable, but I can tell you that, you know, the ones that were considered next door for an offense that was operating without a license, the first offense, I believe, was $5,000. And any offense therein after was $10,000 per incident. And there was never an appeal on those amounts. So sewer use bylaw, you know, it's not uncommon to see sewer use bylaws in the amount of $10,000 to $15,000. So it is a process that, you know, is relatively new for municipalities to be able to use, but now the municipalities have seen the value. More and more municipalities are using that tool.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'm going to start by thanking our CAO for bringing administrative monetary penalties before this council. I think that's going to be a financial advantage for us. I was interested in the report where it mentioned that in the municipality, we have 5,828 dwellings with 14% of those not first residences, the rest would be. So we've never really had an understanding of how many STAs we have in Meaford, and I'm sure it's not that 800-ish number, but I'm wondering, you know, if at some point we do talk about a cap, or it will be interesting through the process of getting STAs registered to kind of see, you know, how many we have, because we hear numbers all over the map from 200 to 400 and more and less and so on and so forth. So that piece, but I did have a question in relation to the code of conduct that will be required. And I'm wondering if we can create sort of a template for that, or is that going to be up to the STA owner to kind of develop the code that's appropriate for their own residents? Or will we sort of create a code that we recommend for Meaford?
So through Mr. Mayor to the Deputy Mayor, having a standardized code of conduct is preferred. And when we talk about, you know, the registry, part of the registry, like a lot of this would be based on a statutory declaration or an attestation. And that's why, you know, the registry from an hour perspective probably is reasonable that, you know, we will put the onus on the property owner to sign the declaration as well as the attestation to say, here's all the things, you agree that you've done all of those things. Now, in a licensing regime, you may end up looking at and say, you know, if you have 3 bedrooms, maybe that is the piece that has fire, actually go do an inspection. But for the registry, having the attestation is adequate. And part of the permit or part of the registry, you could actually say, and by the way, here is the code of conduct. It has to be put in place. It has to be in a very, you know, or non-conspicuous location. We can make sure all that is in place and not leave it up to every property owner to have their own code of conduct.
You ready to vote on this? All in favor? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. We have one last one here. The recommendation is that Committee of the Whole recommend Council of the Municipality of Meaford approve the continuance of the Municipality of Meaford Wellbeing Plan to 2030 with a commitment to review the plan in 2027. Mover and a seconder for this. It's moved by Councillor Greenfield, seconded by Councillor Porter. Thank you. Any discussion on this or questions? Pretty straightforward and a good report, so I'm gonna call it all in favor. And that's passed unanimously. Thank you. We just have a report on building and a report on the county council meeting, and we can perhaps have a recess or something. So the building report is going to come, I guess, from you, Amy. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have nothing to present on this. Happy to answer any questions if there are any on the numbers before you. So moving into 2026 with your next building activities.
Anybody have any questions on it here? Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I appreciate the report, Amy, and I do like the new format that this is coming to us in. And we know that 2025 was a bit of an off year for building, and I just wondered if you would dare make a prediction for 2026. Do you think we'll see an increased number of permits and construction in Meaford? You do not have to answer on, but just thought I'd ask your opinion.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, and to you, Deputy Mayor. I don't think I would dare make an estimation, but I will say that the planners have been awfully busy as far as issuing those planning act approvals and where appropriate through council. So the number of planning act approvals for larger projects and initial reviews through the building department that we're seeing has me feeling optimistic for 2026. So we'll keep you posted.
Great, great. Councillor Greenfield.
Thank you, Bishop. I just want to mention that even all stars have off seasons. And, there are a couple of very impressive numbers in this report, almost $2 million in permit fees and over $1 million in development charges. And those are certainly very much appreciated for municipality when it comes to us doing our day-to-day business.
Okay, can we accept this report? I don't think we have to vote on it. We just have to hear it. So County Council report, Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes. County Council did meet last Thursday. It was a pretty stormy day. The mayor and I did make it to Owen Sound, but a number of county councilors rather did come in virtually. After adoption of the minutes, we talked about the long-term committee of management last meeting where Mayor Scott Mackey of Chatsworth was reelected as chair for this last year of our term. The agenda of that meeting consisted of an update on ministry funding for attracting nursing staff to long-term care homes, an overview of student placements through the Color It Coach program, which funds staff to act as mentors and trainers for students. And this is a wonderful program because it allows that particular employee of one of our long-term care homes to be away from their normal duties and to work strictly with the students. So through that training program, we've found that a number of those students then really get interested in taking on positions at one of our homes. There was also an explanation of a new assessment tool that is now functioning in all 3 long-term care homes. This is a reporting tool that the government has brought forward for long-term care homes. We talked about the operational readiness of Rockwood Terrace in advance of the intended move-in date of January 2027. And imagine this, they intend to move all the residents in one day. It's just going to be a phenomenal feat. Anyway, council agreed to a budget of $198,000 to be drawn from the one-time reserve at the county to support the development of a comprehensive background report that will inform future decision-making around both Grey Gables, because we still have those 62 beds that the province has allotted to Grey Gables, and we have to at some point make a decision about whether we're going to expand Grey Gables or not. But the financial side of that will be a deciding factor, I would think. And they're also going to look at the existing Rockwood Terrace in Durham. Colliers will be the project manager on this piece of work. And there's a lot of options for the existing Rockwood Terrace. I mean, it could be sold. It could be that it would continue to operate as a long-term care home, and whether that was by the county or someone else. But, you know, if the province, who is insistent on getting beds operational, if they decided to fund it, then, you know, would the county operate it? But we have to consider what those operating costs would be. It could be turned into staff residences. It could be affordable housing or assisted living, or there's lots of options there. So we agreed that we need to have that report so that we can make some decisions. A new SOS, the Support of Outreach Services vehicle was unveiled, and it's just a beautiful vehicle. It's a Mercedes van that had just arrived the day before, and it's all fully wrapped. It doesn't look like an ambulance or an emergency vehicle at all. And inside it, there's actually a washroom, an assessment area with a bed and a drug testing machine. That's all, and the whole van is powered by solar panels on the roof. And it's designed in the way that it is so people feel comfortable approaching it, because sometimes they're vulnerable. They just don't want to go near an ambulance. It scares them. But this drug testing machine, they showed us an example, and you can put, if someone who is using drugs would come to the vehicle and allow them to test their drug, it will show exactly what's in, whether how much sugar is in there, how much fentanyl is in it, and whatever else is in the drug. And there's no amount of fentanyl that's safe, but if someone is using on a regular basis, their body seems to adapt to a certain amount of fentanyl, so they'll be able to see if drugs are safe for people. We did engage in a contract with Gray Sawble for the enforcement of county trails and the forest bylaw, inclusive of a pilot program which permits tree marking on private lands. A delegation came to us from Dan and Kara Bowles representing the Clarksburg Village Association, and they're requesting that the speed limit be lowered to 40 through the main street of Clarksburg, or that traffic calming measures are enacted, such as a crosswalk maybe for Marsh Street. So the outcome of that was through the Urban Roads Exchange. Actually, that section of road is going to be transferred to TBM early in July, so then that council can make those decisions. The Joint Municipal Services Committee minutes were next on the agenda, and Deputy CAO Niall Lobley delivered a very fulsome presentation explaining the current situation and the challenges with local health care. And that is well worth looking up if anybody has the time to do that. It's assumed that in Grey County, according to the registered names on the Healthcare Connect list, that there are 12,000 residents who are without connection to a primary care physician. I believe that number is much higher than that, because that's only the number of people who are registered in Healthcare Connect. So anybody who's not on that list or is still going back to Oakville or wherever they came from for their doctor won't be in part of that 12,000. But the good thing is, and I do believe I've mentioned this before, but for anybody listening, you now can register on Healthcare Connect even if you do have a doctor. So it's really important that people do that so that there is an accurate number, because the province again has committed to having everybody in Ontario attached to primary care by 2029. Niall describes healthcare as a complex beast. I couldn't agree more. The challenges with doctor recruitment are many, and we know about those. But one point that from Roma was Minister of Health Sylvia Jones was on stage, and she stated emphatically that this incentivizing of doctors needs to stop. I did ask her in our deputation to her the next day just how we're supposed to do that with this Hunger Games that municipalities are engaged in. And she really didn't have an answer, but she doesn't like it and we don't like it, but I don't see any way around it. TBM is the only community in Ontario that has a special tax class for STAs, kind of appropriate that we talked about that, and that is at Blue Mountain. This resort condo tax class tax the units the same as a residential class. So the province wanted to change that. There's about 1,200 units there, and the province wants to take them to a commercial rate, which would increase their taxes by about 30%. So of course, people didn't want that to happen. So council did agree to support TBM with a request to MPAC to leave this resort condo tax in place. And that's it, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. That's a very comprehensive report. Any other boards or committees meeting? Councillor Greenfield?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, Meaford Library Forum did meet last Wednesday. 2 or 3 items are year-end variance report, and it's not 100% year-end, but it's very close. It looks like we, according to the latest numbers, we ended up 4.17% under budget, which is good news. And we expect there will be a lot of variation from the variance. The membership at the end of the year, 6,822 members of the Meaford Public Library. Within the municipality of Meaford, their numbers were 5,235. Town of Blue Mountains, 631. Grey Highlands, 189 members, and the non-resident numbers from here and there and everywhere were 767, but that grand total of over 6,800, I think, is it's quite impressive, and it grows every year. It's been very consistent. The last couple of months of last year, of 25, excuse me, we had some communication with the Owen Sound North Grey Union Library concerning the annual grant that the annual contract that we pay to the Union Library. Originally, even though it was late in the year, the Union Library was asking an increase of 10.6% to our annual payment. We said no to that. They came back with another number at 5.49%. And after discussion, the library board said, we have an agreement, signed, sealed, delivered that says increases will be no more than 4% during the length of this agreement. So that was our final offer, and the Union Library Board did accept that. So the 2026 payment will be $164,815.04. Now, just in addition, I believe this fall, the contract with the Union Library comes up for discussion. Of course, that's a counselor term to term. So I just advise anybody who's thinking about running for council this fall that that'll be an added issue that will have to be dealt with. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other committees? Then I will entertain a motion to move out of committee of the whole. Deputy Mayor and Councillor Urick, thank you. All in favor? And we did that at 3:47 p.m. And now, are there any any motions or notice of motion for from councillors? Deputy Mayor Keaveney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And yes, I will have a notice of motion in relation to the presentation we heard from the community gardens folks. And we'll be asking for a review of our current land inventory to see if there are some options that could work for providing water and sunlight to the community gardens.
Okay, and you also have a motion for decision today.
I do, Mr. Mayor. Yes, thank you. And I will read this for anyone listening. It's entitled Strategic Land Disposal Process. And the recommendation, whereas the municipality of Meaford, like every community, is attempting to provide a variety of housing types for our residents through appropriate official plan and zoning requirements. And whereas the municipality has recently completed a lands inventory which indicates 3 parcels zoned vacant residential that are easily serviceable. And whereas the Institute of Southern Georgian Bay has undertaken considerable research into the viability of tiny homes in geographical proximity to Georgian Bay with positive outcomes. And whereas there is interest from Council of the Municipality of Meaford in exploring the potential of a tiny home community to be located within the boundaries of the Municipality of Meaford. And whereas this proposed tiny home community would include small homes on foundations constructed to meet Ontario Building Code standards with a cost that would be generally considered affordable. And whereas there are developers in our area who have identified the need for this type of housing and their ability to construct the same, therefore be it resolved that Council of the Municipality of Meaford directs staff to initiate a strategic land disposal process that will include the development of a request for pre-qualification procedures that allow for the expedited approval of tiny homes which meet Ontario Building Code standards on the 3 parcels of land identified as vacant residential within the surplus land inventory document. So I'll let you get a seconder and then I'll
Yes,
speak
is
to
there a
it.
seconder for this motion? Councillor Bell, thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I was just going to add a couple of points. In our official plan, we removed the requirement to do a prescribed square footage. So our plan speaks to construction of a residence that meets the building code. So in the Ontario Building Code, it states that 188 square feet is actually the minimum as long as that unit provides for a dining, a bathroom, a kitchen, a bathroom, you know, with the sleeping space and so on. So as long as that's all contained, now that's not necessarily my vision for this. I see the homes as being a little bit bigger, but that is the opportunity to have homes of that size. And the code goes on to speak to ceiling heights and you know, the size the bathroom must be and so on and so forth, and what, you know, a mezzanine or a loft, what size that must be. So there's a lot of detail in the code that would speak to these particular types of homes. But what we're asking for here is really just the support from council to go forward and to explore the potential. I think it would just be incredible and amazing if Meaford was the first community in Grey County to have, you know, a tiny home development of this nature. I think this provides an opportunity for people to get into the housing market that maybe, you know, don't want to rent a small apartment or that can't afford a house. This gives them a place to start, and it works for, you know, people who are downsizing as well, who just want, you know, a nice little place to live in a nice environment. So I think, you know, where the timing is right to consider this, and I hope you will all support this request for staff to have a look at what this process might look like. Thank you.
Anyone have any questions for Deputy Mayor? Councillor Bell?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On the therefore clause about having staff initiate the land disposal, there's no time element on that. Are you looking for this to be done on our term of council, or thoughts on timeline?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Bell, and through you, Mr. Mayor. It would be my hope that we would see this report before the end of this term of council so that we can, you know, have some direction as to whether or not this might go forward. And I'll look to the CAO to see if that's possible.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to that question, we do actually have a fairly strong land disposal process already established. So I think the reality is we could do that. The time frame that I just want to be very realistic with is when council looks at deliberating on declaring the land surplus, that will be tied. We may have an issue with lame duck if in fact council goes into lame duck, because I don't believe council can actually dispose of land during the lame duck period. But we will proceed with the thought that we won't be in lame duck, so we can move that forward. But definitely moving forward with the development of a request for proposal type of document for council to review could be done within a timely manner.
Another question?
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. And thank you, Deputy Mayor, for putting this in front of us for a notice of motion. I I talked about this a couple of years ago and I spent some time with our former building inspector and what you have got in here about conforming to the standards of the Ontario Building Code. And the rooms that you mentioned, he told me about those rooms and they do have I'm just going to say square footage requirement for each one. And when I talked about it before, I thought, well, we could build a building to the absolute minimum standards of the Ontario Building Code and we could do it. And then I didn't do anything about that. So thank you for doing it. And we'll see where this goes, so I can support it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Bell. And I just thought I'd add for information and a little bit of further research that I've conducted. I mean, there are 3 parcels, as mentioned, that are zoned vacant residential. 2 of them are give or take an acre and a half, and the other one is over 3 acres. And you can, even if the homes are in and around 400 square feet, you can put probably about 25 of them on an acre. So that gives us a little sense of the density that we could be looking at to create such a community.
The good news is we do have some properties that will fill the bill and be quite suitable, I think. Go ahead, Amy.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd just like to offer as well, if the intent is to offer the lands at no cost or at a reduced cost, the community improvement plan would be the tool that would need to be used to be able to do that. And so please keep this notice of motion in mind when you're reviewing the community improvement plan refresh on your February 9th meeting of council.
Thank you. Are you ready to vote on this? All in favor? And that's carried unanimously, and thank you very much. This could be an important new move. The next item is we have a recommendation, be it resolved that Council of the Municipality of Meaford hereby adopt the minutes of the council meetings held on January 12th, 2026, and the closed meeting held on January 12th, 2026. The mover and a seconder. Councillor Forder and Councillor Ennis, thank you. All in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Is there anything on the communications agenda that anyone wish to raise? Anything on the, sorry, go ahead. Well, I'm there now too, so.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. So I'm looking at number 21 from the 5th of January, the 4th Canadian Division Training Center, and they have a retiring, and I apologize if I get the name incorrect, Warrenin, and they've requested a letter to acknowledge the corporal's retirement. And so I just wanted to make sure that we did that.
And we get a number of requests like that through the course of the year, and they're all answered and addressed, and this one has been done too. Thank you. So now we are going to move into a closed session and it's resolved that Council of the Municipality of Meaford does now go into a closed session at 3:57 p.m. with the CAO and clerk in attendance to discuss a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board. It's under the open meeting exemption C of section 239(2) of the Municipal Act 2001, and it is respecting a pending land acquisition. Mover and a seconder to and then we'll allow other people to move out and we'll Reporting out of the closed session with the CAO and clerk in attendance to discuss a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality under open meeting exemption C of section 239(2) of the Municipal Act 2001. We discussed only the land acquisition that was on the agenda, and council gave direction to staff. We have a confirming bylaw to pass, and then we are done. So be it resolved that bylaw 2026-11, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the meeting of council of the corporation of the municipality of Meaford, be taken as read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed. A mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Forder and Councillor Ennis, thank you. All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. And with that, I declare this meeting adjourned.